the word, can I ask you to poke the thing? In Gita, the word Atman is used without the precision that's used later in the classical period, like Shankara. So sometimes it means the body, sometimes it means the personality, the mind, sometimes it means the Paramatma, the Supreme Self. So there's a play on words here. This is why a scripture like this, it's not efficacious to study it without a teacher or at least a really good commentary. So he's talking about this jiva bhavana, this personal sense of self, this jivatma. It's a term I rarely use. I don't like it too much. It's personal sense of self. So it basically means my mind. So to the person in ignorance, my mind is my enemy. Oh, my terrible mind, like Mike was saying before class, my lazy mind is wandering and I'm not, all that. Or if we get triggered, it goes, or I'm in some mind state of deep sadness or depression or anger or addiction. The mind is tyrannical and can afflict us. Most people who commit suicide do not do so because something hurts in the body. There are a few who do end-of-life kind of physician-assisted suicide, etc. But the vast majority of people who blow their brains out do it because they can't stand being in their minds. So for them, the mind is the enemy. But for the yogi, the mind is the greatest friend. What do we mean by that? So we need to clearly understand the dharma of the mind. And what's the word dharma mean? The essence or the nature of something without which it would not be what it is. It's the dharma of fire to burn. It's the dharma of water to be wet. It's the dharma of sugar to be sweet. So what is the dharma of the mind? It is a pleasure seeker, pain avoider mechanism. That's what it does. From the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment your head hits the pillow at night, your mind is seeking the good by your understanding of it. Well, Jim, I live a life of service. I'm concerned about the good of others. Why? Well, that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah, but what's the benefit? Well, I don't think of myself so much. I'm happier. Yeah. So even the most altruistic of actions ultimately is for the sake of myself. And what happens when life delivers sorrow to me? I want it to stop. I like to use the example, it's like phototropism in plants. Over there in the kitchen, I have these anthuriums. and they're mildly phototropic, not like the old-timey days when we had coleuses. Any of you ever had coleuses plants in your house? You don't see them too much anymore. You may remember them, Mike, in our old hippy-dippy days.
Not by that name.
But anyway, they were highly phototropic. So if you just hung it someplace and you just left it, all the leaves start to turn towards the sun. So you had to rotate them and stuff like that. Have you ever done that with plants?
Yeah.
So they can't help it. It's their nature to go towards light. So also it is the Dharma. It's the nature of my mind to go toward the good. Thank God. God is the most beloved, or we all be screwed. Meaning yourself. When the yogi finally begins to understand that I just use the objects of the world as a way to induce temporarily the mind state of the mind coming home to the self, a kiss of the bliss of Brahman. Then we begin to meditate and cultivate that non-mediated experience. Now, going back to the second chapter, my favorite verse, verse 55, Krishna says, when a person casts off all the cravings of the mind, O Partha, and is satisfied in the self by the self, then they're said to be Sthita Prajna Purusha, a person of steady. So then the mind becomes my friend. It becomes sensitive and pure. You perceive the world as it is. See, oh, Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma. All this is verily Brahman. It's all God. It's all good. The externals don't change. What changes? My mind. So when I'm in the state of ignorance and I'm looking for love in all the wrong places, I'm trying to play whack-a-mole with the world and dominate and control people, places, things, and conditions. Oh, my mind's my enemy. When I regret the past, when I worry about the future, but when I can let go of that, let the mind come home. Swamiji used to say, hurry home. Hurry home. It's the same mind. There's a very famous traditional image. Some of you may have seen it. And it's Hanuman embracing Lord Rama. Hanuman, of course, is the monkey god. But what Hanuman is the mind. He's very powerful. He can fly through the air. He can carry great mountains and stuff like that. It's the mind. The mind is incredibly powerful. But where does it find its rest, its peace. It's in the embrace of Rama. Rama not meaning an external God, Rama himself. Where the mind moves. So we have to go through a process of retraining the mind. We start off with a mind that is undisciplined. It tyrannizes us. I call it the inner 2-year-old. I don't want to eat my vegetables. I want ice cream. And if we are at the effect of that indulgent tendency in the mind, it tyrannizes us. So we need to understand, just because I think something, just because I feel something, doesn't mean I have to do something. This is one of the things meditation teaches us. Just don't do something, sit there. All sorts of stuff arises, and what do we do with it? Nothing. Now, many of you have been on long meditation retreats, like Vipassana retreats. What happens when material like that comes up? What do?
Just observe it.
And what happens then?
It stops eventually.
So read the English one more time and really try to internalize its meaning.
The self is the friend of the self for him who has conquered himself by the self.
Yes.
But to the unconquered self, the self stands in the position of an enemy, like an external foe.
Yes. Ultimately, how do we conquer the mind? Get out. You just say, shut up and get out. Ultimately, the way to heal the mind is to get out. Stand in the viewpoint of witness. Do not believe. Beautiful and incredibly important verse. With all these various understandings in the term. Any thoughts about this? Next verse.
Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita shitoshna sukha dukkhishu tatha manapamanayoh. The supreme self of him who is self-controlled and peaceful is balanced in cold and heat, pleasure and pain, as also in honor and dishonor.
So there are two ways to approach this verse. Ultimately, the self in me is never touched by heat and cold, pleasure and suffering, honor and dishonor. But another understanding of it is the mind of the yogi cultivates this equanimity to just be present. And when we say heat and cold, we mean the entire range of pleasurable and unpleasurable physical experiences. Pleasure and suffering, sukham dukkam cha.
Pleasure and pain.
Yeah, but the word is dukkha, isn't it?
Yeah, sukha dukkheshu.
Yeah, I think of pain as more physical. I would translate it as pleasure and suffering.
Mhm.
Mental responses. When the situation is conducive, sukha. When the environmental situation is non-conducive, dukkha. It's mechanical. It's repetitive. Keep watching. It's incredibly boring. So we endeavor to not get involved. We just watch it when the mind goes raga, 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 or devesha. Just don't do something. Stand there. Sit there. And what was he say? Honor, dishonor, siddha,
Yeah.
asiddha?
Mana, mane.
Okay. So intellect, where I determine something is successful or honorable, unsuccessful or unhonorable. Same. Keep practicing what we call sama drishta, this equality of vision. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. Nothing in life is so important that it's worth losing my peace of mind. Make peace of mind your most prized possession. Well, what about that would happen at work? Shouldn't I get upset over that? It's not necessary. First of all, it's not a solution. Nothing in life is so important that I need to squander my serenity. Swami Tejomayananda used to use this example. Let's say in your home you had a fire. You only had a few moments to grab something to take out. Would it be your dogs? Would it be a book? Would it be your Shiva idol? What would it be? Jewelry? What would be your maybe pictures of family? That's my prized possession. But make peace of mind precious. But most of us squander it on an unkind word or a scowl. We treat it cheaply. It's almost like it's a decision you make. Any thoughts on this? All right, next verse.
Should I ask a question?
Yes.
So the thing that you said about it's almost a decision we make. But oftentimes that decision is unconscious, and then the effort to bring it back to equanimity is conscious. Right?
Yes.
So
it's not so much that it's unconscious, it seems involuntary.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
When you're upset, you know it. It's not unconscious at all.
Right, yeah. But it's involuntary.
You don't choose it. You choose to let go of it. Choose to let go.
Why does it feel so hard to let go?
Habit. Habit and attachment. And we're rooted in, I think I'm a person, that person over there or that situation is real and separate and joy-giving, and I'm attached to it. So then when I lose it, I'm either grieving or I'm angry. And then what the mind does is it returns to the past and just keeps rehashing. Oh, that was so sad. Oh, that was such a tragedy. Another way to look at it, think of it like a dream. Let's say you had a dream last night that your horse died. And in the dream, you were just bereft. Oh, I lost my horse. Anybody have a horse in this life? No, it's not real. Yeah, but that's really real. No. Feel the grief. And move on. There's in Yoga Vasishtha, there's this wonderful thing. Oh, all my relatives are dead. I'm grieving so deeply. What's this all about? Well, I've lost my mother, my father, my siblings. Okay. Do you grieve your grandparents? Well, kind of. Do you grieve your great grandparents? Well, not really. You're related to. Let's say you're adopted and your birth parents die. Do you grieve it? You don't know? No. So being related is not what it is. It's something else. It's attachment. It's not bad. It's just painful. It's just painful. In the end, nobody dies. There's that really powerful shloka in the second chapter, number 11. You grieve for whom you should not grieve, though you speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor the dead. But if my mind habituates, goes to the past and rehashes the unfortunate circumstance, you break up with someone. Your mind wants to rehash and rehash and rehash and rehash. Knock yourself out. It's your choice. But when the thought arises, you can also turn your mind someplace else. Yeah, but I really love that person. Well, what about your spouse in your last life? You're not going to grieve them too? There's no end. There's no end to it if you go down that rabbit hole of the labyrinth of the mind. Jim, where you said, oh, my father in 3 lifetimes ago, he's dead. How long has he been dead? 600 years. He's just as dead as my father in this lifetime. All right, next verse.
Jnana vijnana truttatma kutastho vijitendriyah Yukta Ityut- ityuchyate yogi samaloštashma kanchana. The yogi who is satisfied with knowledge and wisdom, who remains unshaken, who has conquered the senses, to whom a lump of earth, a stone, and gold are the same, is said to be harmonized, or is said to have attained nirvikalpa samadhi.
So, one of the most famous verses. Let's pull it apart. So let's do the first idea.
The yogi who is satisfied with knowledge and wisdom.
Yes. So, jnanam vijnanam cha. Here, jnanam means a firm and clear understanding. V is a prefix. It means superlative. It means direct experience. Other scriptures will use the term paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge, and aparoksha jnana, direct knowledge. So we get the jnana, the indirect knowledge, from the Guru, from our study of the scripture, from Guru. That inspires us, gives us a clear understanding. But we need to have the direct experience. And in the white heat of meditation, I see the nothingness of the personal sense of self. Understanding and that direct experience come together at the same time. That's essentially what we endeavor to do here in satsang. We explain what's going on. We try to put you into a state where you're having an experience of yourself and then tell you what you're experiencing while you're experiencing it. If we're successful, you go, oh, see. So this idea of jnanam vijnanam cha, not just understanding, but understanding and experience. Next idea.
Who remains unshaken.
So you want to be still. Now in meditation, all sorts of things are going to come out of the unconscious. What we call the unloading of the unconscious. Technical term in Sanskrit is kashaya. Swamiji used to call it the vomiting up of the unconscious tendencies. The knots of the heart, the hridaya granthi, come up out of the unconscious into my awareness, and I do nothing. I just become conscious of it. And then they start to untangle. Say stita, still. Shitala, cool. Open, curious. And frequently, as the sense of self starts to thin, and as you begin to see everything you've invested your identity in, job, relationship, religious ideas, everything, all of it goes. And then there's a piece of it, I don't want to let go of it. It's here. Or as the ego starts to begin to sense its own unreality, it's terrifying. We have to just be kind, compassionate, let it dissolve. There's nothing there, no thing. Next idea.
Who has conquered the senses?
So, my mind's agitations come from sensory input. Prove it to me. Who got upset this week? What did you get upset about?
Work.
Yeah. Now, how did you know something happened at work? You saw, you heard, right?
Yeah.
The data came through your senses. So we have to conquer the senses. Two ways to look at it. In meditation, we practice what's called uparati, sense withdrawal, like a tortoise pulling in all their limbs. We stay focused on our point of meditation. But Shankara says the best uparati is when you're moving through the world and the sense objects don't create any agitation. So I say you want to have a mind like a sieve. You know, just let everything like the water go coming through a sieve. Shankara will use the metaphor of a wicker basket. Water just pours through it. So whatever information comes at us, just let it pass through. Positive and negative. Now here's a secret. Most of us would like to renounce our attachment to painful things. You're a terrible worker. You've done a crappy job. We're gonna, what do they call it? PIP? Is that what they say in the industry?
Okay. Yeah.
The personal improvement program. What's that mean?
Performance improvement program.
Performance improvement program. What's that mean? What's the next step? Our job is just let it go through. But we can't do that if 6 months earlier they say, you're getting a raise. You've done a fantastic job. You're the best manager we have in this position. You are so smart. You solved that problem for the company. What happens to our mind? You know, I just lap it up. Or in a relationship, I love you. You make me happy. God, what a dangerous statement. None of us have the power to make one another feel anything. I promise you, if you buy the positive feedback, attention, and it land in the mind, when, not if, when it changes, then you're stuck. Well, I want to renounce this and I can't. Of course you can't, you're attached. So we have to be willing to be empty, just let all this stuff pass through. Positive, negative, real, unreal, true, lies. Just let it through. It's a practice. It's a practice. Practicing having a mind like a sieve. Any thoughts on this? And again, we can practice not believing the mind in meditation. It's incredibly valuable. This practice is one we do in the world. Now, once we're on the path, Guru operates in our life. How? Through my karma. So, back to whatever upset you this week. Tell me this is the first time you've ever had a feeling like that. Is it?
No.
Yeah. So the Lord has said, oh dear, she got identified. Okay, well, we'll bring it around again in 6 months. See if she does any better. Oh no, she got identified again. Well, we'll bring it around again in another 2-3 weeks. You know? And it will keep showing up in our lives until we do simple practice. Let go and keep your heart open. And don't identify. Don't. Some people, their teachers, boom, 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 boom. I rarely do that. I think life does a damn good job of it without my help. If we pay attention. The lesson is always the same. Be empty. Let it pass through. Next idea. Did we get all the pieces of that one?
No, there are more.
Okay.
To whom a lump of earth, a stone, and gold are the same.
So, keeping the mind tuned up as I'm functioning in the world. Practice just walking around. When I was doing my sadhana in the ashram, we were right near Golden Gate Park, and I would just walk through. Just look at a flower and endeavor not to superimpose. Oh, that's such a beautiful flower. Oh, that reminds me of the flowers my mother used to raise. You know, nonsense. Just direct perception. And then there's dog poop on the path. My one's going, ew, no, just to see it for what it is. There's people playing baseball down on the field. There's an old Chinese lady with her grandchild in a stroller. Takes enormous attention to do this. Usually, maybe you can do it for 5 or 10 minutes until you practice it. Turn the volume level down on reactivity to the world. Practicing this sadhana. Everything is the same. Now, This doesn't mean to have bad manners. If someone gives you a gift, what do? You graciously say thank you. But inside, someone gives you a compliment, graciously say thank you. Don't let it land. Someone's critical. Thank you for your suggestion. Let it. And in terms of like work, the slogan I like to use is take my feelings out of it, be solution oriented. That's your duty. You have a task to perform. Do the best. Do the rest. Beautiful poetry. I think that's the end of the verse, right? Is there one more idea?
Is said to be harmonized or attained nirvikalpa samadhi.
Yeah. Near means without, mis actually. Vikalpa is a perturbation, a movement. Sama equal, divine. Absolute equanimity of mind without any perturbation. Next verse. This is such great stuff.
Subrin Matyartudasina Madhyastha Dveshya Bandhushu Sadhushvapi Chapapeshu Samabuddhir Vishishyate. He who is of the same mind to the good-hearted, friends, relatives, enemies, the indifferent, the neutral, the hateful, the righteous, and the unrighteous, excels.
So here Krishna reinforces the same idea and gets us where most of us get reactive, which is in our relationships. One of my favorite things I heard Swamiji say was, my love is like a fire hose. Whoever gets in front of me gets lost. It was indiscriminate. Whoever was there was God. Friend, foe, saint or sinner. Every person is a divine incarnation of God, dancing the dance of the infinite. Only my mind that thinks I like this dance, I don't like that dance. Now, does that mean from a worldly standpoint we lose our discrimination? No, of course not. But I hear people who will say, oh, I just can't watch the news anymore, Jim. It just upsets me so much. It's just news. Swamiji read the newspaper every day. It's just information. One thing for sure that it'll do is change. It's all the dance of the end. Well, if I'm cheated, don't I have a right to be angry? You can do whatever you want. But if you want to be a yogi, goal is moksha, freedom. Oh, now, what Swamiji would do, we had the capacity to tune up and tune into him. He would gather those people close to him. And when we would have an attachment, he was a great mimic. So he would mimic us so we could see our foolishness. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Yogi yunjit jitas satatmatma anam rahasi stita ekaki yatta chittatma nirashira parigraha. Let the yogi try constantly to keep the mind steady, remaining in solitude, alone, with the mind and body controlled, free from hope and greed.
So now he's shifting gears into actual meditative practice. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead to give us kind of an overview of where he's going to go. So the first thing we want to think of when we meditate is what I call logistics. So if you can afford to have a meditation room in your house, most of us who live in an urban setting here in the States, our homes are not that big. But you can have a place where you meditate. And you can sanctify it. You may put an idol up, or if you're not particularly into images, you can have things like flowers or a candle or something like that. Lights and incense. Pick a time. Inspiration will fail us. It's a practice. The title of the chapter is Abhyasa Yoga. So every day, this is what I do. I meditate. You don't want to get too involved with the success or failure or the outcome of an individual period of sitting. Doesn't mean we don't evaluate, but think of it in terms of in 6 months. What should we be looking for? Am I less reactive? Am I more peaceful? Am I more loving? Am I more generous? Am I more considerate of others? Am I happier? Now, when we actually sit, times if you go on a retreat or you have a partner who's into it, of course you can meditate with another person. But essentially, this is something we do by ourselves. You do not need to wait till you get to the Himalayas. I was talking with someone who was saying, oh, you know, it's just an urban environment, and I maybe I should go to India and blah, 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 and stuff like that. So, you know, you come here, and right here is my little piece of the Himalayas. People come here, oh, Jim, your home is so peaceful. People, it's easy to drop in because hundreds of people literally have meditated here over the 28 years I've been in this apartment. It needs energy. It can be anywhere. Nisargadatta Maharaj had his little apartment above his biddy store in Mumbai. Right in the middle of the urban. But it's solitary psychologically. What's the next idea? Solitary. What's the next one? What's the first idea I made?
Sorry, the first one is solitude, alone,
Yes.
with the mind and body controlled.
Yes. So when you sit, you want to sit. The idea is with your back straight because it's more comfortable in the end. When I say to Westerners, do you know why Indians sit cross-legged on the floor when they meditate? Do you know what the answer is? Because they don't have chairs. Culturally, in India, until recently, sat on the floor. For us Westerners, because we're not raised sitting on the floor, our lower backs aren't strong and our hips are tight. If you want to practice sitting in the lotus posture, Padmasana, or one leg on top of the other, Sukhasana, fine. But it's perfectly okay to sit in a chair. Feet flat on the floor, hands open and receptive in your lap. But once you assume your meditative posture, don't move. Now, all the various impressions in the mind, these little subtle sanskaras, will show up in meditation as I have an itch here and pain, I gotta do that. And we get squirmy. Oh, I've got to drink something. Who's had those things happen when they meditate? It's just ego. That's all it is. And what Krishna is saying here, and all the various schools say, sit there and it will pass. Notice it. Those of you who've taken a Goenka retreat, the Vipassana retreat, you've done this, haven't you, Deepa?
Yeah.
And they call them sankharas.
Yeah.
Sanskrit is sanskara.
Yeah.
But they have you scan the body. And the idea that they put forward is the mental impression and the irritation or agitation in the body. There's just a subtle and gross form of the same thing. Is that what they say?
Yeah. Or they're similar, if not the same.
So, still, keep the body still. Now, if you get a cramp and you need to stand up and do something like that, no one's going to dock your pay. But as a rule, stay still. Next idea.
Free from hope and greed.
Yes. So, one of ego's greatest strategies is I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, more, better, different. I want it different than it is. This can also become what the great Tibetan Lama called spiritual materialism. I want to get somewhere in my meditation. I had a friend who was a Zen Buddhist who would taken precepts and his partner hadn't taken as many as he. He says, I don't know why David, he's been doing this longer than I, and he's not progressing in Buddhism like I am. And I said nothing, none of my business. But it's an oxymoron. You're not going anywhere. You're not getting anything. You're removing stuff. One of the things we want to remove is effort, struggle. Just don't do something. Sit there. Even spiritually. Don't try to be an enlightened person. Really concentrate, then I'll get there. That's spiritual materialism. Have a real interest. What's my essential nature? That's a little bit different question. So this is the idea of hope and greed. Meditation is not a problem-solving session. It's not a time to do visualizations and affirmations so I can get what I want. I'm not saying those are not valid practices if you want to do that, but it's not meditation. It's a not do. I made reference to this text before, the cloud of unknowing. And the author of the cloud says you want to put a cloud of forgetting between you and the world. Forget the world. A cloud of unknowing between you and God. For us, you and the self. All your ideas about the self, that's not it. We want to unknow. Next idea.
That's it.
I really recommend you go back and review these verses. They are so important in our practice. Right, next one.
Shucho deshe pratisthapya sthiramasanamaatmanah natyuchritam natinicham jailajina kushottaram. Having in a clean spot established a firm seat of his own, neither too high nor too low, made of a cloth, a skin, and kusha grass, one over the other.
So here we're talking about the meditation seat. There's nothing mystical or magical about having a cloth, then a layer of kusa grass, and then a skin. Oftentimes you'll see pictures of yogis sitting on a tiger skin or something like that. What it means is comfortable. If you have a zafu and you like your zafu, sit on your zafu. If you have wall-to-wall carpet and you just have a little piece of cloth that you sit on, fine. You're sitting in a chair, fine. There's no virtue in sitting on an uncomfortable seat. You don't get gold stars for that. Any thoughts about it? Again, this is metaphor. It's not literalistic. You don't need to get a cloth and where am I going to find kusa grass? Any thoughts on this? All right, next one.
Tatre kagram manah kritva yata chittendriya kriya upavishya sane Yunjya Adyoga Matma Vishuddhaye. There, having made the mind one pointed, with the actions of the mind and the senses controlled, let him, seated on the seat, practice yoga for the purification of the self.
Yes. So we single point the mind. Various traditions have various ways of doing it. If you go up to Spirit Rock, they're going to tell you to be with the breath. You go to the Goenka folk, they'll tell you to concentrate on the nether lip, your lip between your lips and your nose, or do a body scan. If you're doing contemplative prayer based on the cloud, they'll say, use a sacred word like love or peace or God. The Hindu form of that is mantra. Om Namah Shivaya. And as thoughts arise, bring your attention back to your point of concentration. Over and over. The arising of the thoughts in and of itself is not so problematic. What we don't want to do is get caught up in the theme of our thinking, the story that we attach. I need to make something for dinner. What am I going to do for dinner? Well, I think I have a sweet potato in the drawer. Well, if I bake that, then I have butter. Oh, and I have some honey. Your mind does that kind of thing. That's story. I have to make dinner tonight. Let it go. My butt itches. Oh, or with the breath, or scanning the body, whatever meditative technique you use. Later on, Krishna will call japa the king of yogas. Japa is the silent repetition of the mantra. Here we don't mean, I'm very good at doing japa. I have my mala and I can do 1,008 repetitions. It's not about it being mechanical. It's not about accomplishing anything. Use it as a point of attention. Mind wanders. So, for example, with japa, your mind is noisy. You can say the mantra quickly. Om Namah Shivaya. Always let there be moments of silence. If the mind starts up again, you start the mantra. As your mind slows down, let the mantra slow down. Oh, oh. Your mind gets quieter than the mantra, drop the mantra. Starts getting noisy again. Learning to bring the mind to a single. Now, as you practice this will begin to make you very powerful in the world. First, you're going to be able to listen to people without your mind coming up with your half of the conversation while in the middle of their sentence. You know, when your mind does that. Solving tasks, it opens us into the intuition so we can see how the problems are. I have a student who was playing with ADHD, and he found the most effective remedy for his ADHD has been meditation. So there are tremendous practical worldly benefits. Next idea.
Having made the mind one-pointed, with the actions of the mind and the senses controlled, let him, seated on the seat, practice yoga.
So, sitting in meditation with this single pointed concentration. This is yoga. Yoga is uniting the mind. Starting next week, we'll go more deeply into what he means by practicing. So, what verse are we on for next week?
13.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.